2003. Her work in this area led her to receiving a CBE on the Queen's Honors Birthday list. Then in 2005, Yvonne received an honorary doctorate in philosophy from the London Metropolitan University. She currently chairs the African Caribbean Business Network and has previously served 3 terms as chair of the London Central Learning. As we could see from today's program, she's a person who has jumped hurdles, learned and mastered the ropes in business, and got to where she is today by dint of hard work, determination, and perseverance. There's an before I hand over to Yvonne, thank you so much for coming. We are really
Thank you for inviting me. I've got so much to live up to.
to have you. But, you know, there was one thing that struck me. I mean, the first time I met you in 2003, one thing struck me was despite all these achievements, you know, despite your great achievements, one thing stood out. I mean, I admire a lot of things about you, but one thing stood out for me was, you know, your down-to-earth nature or approach to things, your humility, and your unassuming nature, which, let's face it, when most of us achieve things, you know, we think we are walking on air, you know, we don't really come down to it, but that was what really struck me, you know, and for me, that's a shining example that we should all take a cue for.
I can sit down. It's how long I've got to present. He said, Yvonne, you know by now, speeches should be like a lady's skirt. Short enough to cover this, short enough to keep them interested, but long enough to cover the subject. I've got 30 minutes. After making a bit of money, I really wanted to put back into the community. I started the European Federation of Black Women Business Owners because at the time of running my business, after 12 years I think it was of running my business, I didn't run into people who in the community we say look like me. So, you know, everywhere I went, or every board I was on, and I'm sure you've all heard this story before, I was the only, sometimes not only the only woman, but quite often the only black face. So what I wanted to do was to really look at how to network, and as Dennis said before, it's so important to know how to use your networks. And there wasn't one, so I started one. I was very lucky that I had a radio station to back me up to get the word out that there was such an organisation, and helped it to grow very, very quickly. ACBN, which I'm chair of as well, was a mayoral initiative started by, well, not it wasn't started by, it started in his term, Ken Livingstone, the Mayor of London. I was on the board of the London Development Agency, another interesting story, and definitely, never mind a glass of wine, that's a glass of whiskey. Learning and Skills Council, I think someone mentioned the Learning and Skills Council before. 47 Learning and Skills Council across the UK. For the 8 years I was on that board, I was the only black chair, another lonely place that turned out to be. But not only lonely from a race perspective, but also in London there were 5 Learning and Skills Council. I chaired the largest patch, London Central, and I was the only woman chair in London. So I felt kind of battered all round. DTI, I chaired the Ethnic Minority Business Forum. I'm still currently on the Sitting Guilds Board. I've been advisor, observer on the board for Business Link for London. And as was mentioned before, European Economic and Social Committee was a totally different experience. And I would urge that if any of you can ever get the opportunity to go to Brussels and check these people out, you should, because I think you would learn a lot. My social impact, what happened, I think, helped me. I became reckoned as a force, you know, or anybody wanting to know anything about my particular subjects, which I championed, which was ethnic minorities, women, and small business. And I did this nationally, regionally, and internationally. So as you can see, these are kind of courses and things that I really campaigned over. And the learning from that is, as Gandhi said, see the change you want to see. So in order, especially when we're looking at social side of it, in order to make sure that we put back in the community, you have to lead by example, so be the change that you want to see. Now, political. This is with a small p, I've got to say. And this is the test of a true entrepreneur, true small business person. All I would say about this particular one is that you have to learn your elevator pitch. Because when we meet politicians like this, I quite often did, because of my social, because of the social work I did, and because of the economic work I did, obviously not obviously, but my name kind of got around all sorts of circles. So I've been invited into Downing Street, I've been invited to speak to Prince Charles, you know, Sherry Blair, Jesse Jackson, maybe come. Did Jesse Jackson come? He did, yeah. So when these people, who are very, very important, come and meet everybody, and everybody wants to meet them, you've got 30 seconds to make an impression. So you need to know what it is you want to champion, what you're going to say about that, and you need to be able to get it over in those 30 seconds. Because like the Queen, she'll shake your hand and say, thank you. Thank you. So you need to know what it is you want to say, be able to get in front of it very quickly. So, again, impact. I am going to be skipping over this because my 30 minutes was nearly up. Consolidate credibility. So each step, it's compounding, it's adding to. So it really is about consolidating your credibility. Become the expert on your particular industry or the issues that you want to champion. And these are mine. Media success. Now, this is another case of sweet and sour, sort of bittersweet experiences and relationships. And being someone in public relations, I know how the media can act and I know what they want. You have to be very, very careful with your relationships with the media because one minute they could be supporting you and, you know, building you up, and the next minute, you know, they will be the first to illustrate your fall. So you have to be very careful. But however, the media can be useful. Again, it's about compounding all your credibilities, which we talked about before, and you can use the media to do so. Because of my experience on the various boards, because of my experience, or because I became the go-to person, if you like, when anybody wanted to talk about small business, women and ethnic minorities, I quite often got the media coming to me when they wanted, I'm in a little black book or on a roster or somewhere, something like that, and you can quite easily get onto those. But you become known as the person to go to. And because of that, I was approached to go on a program called Millionaire's Mission on Channel 4. Did anybody see it? Okay. Yeah.
Oh, was that you?
Yeah, I know you'd never recognise it. Millionaire's Mission, a bittersweet experience, but again, can't go into that right now, but I use this as an example as how people can be approached by the media. What that was all about was they took 6 entrepreneurs to live in a field in Uganda, just outside Kampala, in between 2 villages, Nyakasuru and Kororowa. Does anybody recognise those names? No. Okay. 2 villages, and what we had to do within 3 weeks was to build sustainable enterprises, so that when we left, the villages could actually carry on as something that they could do and they could make their money. And gosh, yeah, that is definitely another story, and that's a big bottle of wine this time. Because the perception of the villagers is one of the saddest things I've ever, or most disappointing things I ever did, because the perception of the villagers to myself and one other guy who were 2 ethnic minorities, or 2 black people in the groups, let's be frank, was their perception, or who they thought we were the bag carriers. And that's our fault, but it's also the fault of the media. And I say it's our fault because not enough of us go back and do things for our own people and show that it's not, excuse my frankness, back to the white